Okay guys, welcome back to tutorial number 8 of the Angular 2 series. Now if you have a look at before we proceed, I need to mention that I have removed the code from the previous video because just the style code was taking up a lot of space on the screen, and this is after all a video about Angular 2 and not CSS. So all we have now is hello world in our app component and Jotmon tutorials in our Jotmon component, the tutorials component. Now if you have a look here, we have hard-coded the string Jotmon tutorials in our template. What would be better is if we could have a variable, assign it a value, and then bind that variable to our view, which is the template. And that is what we're going to be learning in this video, data binding. Now a variable is nothing but a property of our class, so finally let's get into our class. So let's create a property called title and let's assign it a value. So let's say tutorials from Jotmon. Now when you save, so we can bind the variable value, that is tutorials from Jotmon, into our view using double curly braces. So double curly braces, and what we need to specify inside is the property, so title. Now when you save this, the browser is going to reload and it is going to display the new title, so tutorials from Jotmon. So what is happening here is one-way data binding, and this double curly braces right here is called interpolation. So from our component property, we are binding to the view. So from the property to the view, one-way data binding. So when you change the property, let's say Jotmon channel, and save it, whenever the property gets updated, the view is also updated with the new value. So it's going to display tutorials from Jotmon channel. Now another way to specify binding is to use the square brackets for property binding. So let's say we have an image tag. So image, now we have the source attribute and we assign it a string value. Let's say http www.lorempixel, http lorempixel.com/400 by 200. And when we save this, it is going to generate a random image that is of size 400 by 200. Now in Angular, however, we create a new property called public. Let's say image link is equal to this link over here. So copy it and paste it. Now in Angular, what we do is wrap this source property with square brackets and then assign it a property, so image link. And now when you save it and reload it, then we are going to have a brand new image and the website still works. The Angular application is still working fine. But now what we need to keep in mind is that we are dealing with the source property of the image tag and not the attribute source. The source attribute. So we are dealing with the source property and not the source attribute. Now if you're confused, let me show you with a quick example. And bear this in mind because this is really important going forward. So let me create a break, and then let me create an input tag. The type will be equal to text, and let's say the value is equal to Angular. Now let me save this. When the browser reloads, we're going to have the input text box, which is not working. Value is equal to Angular. Okay. Now let me save this, and we should have the application working fine with our input text box. Okay, so we have our input text box with a value Angular. Now, to understand the difference between an attribute and the property, let me click on inspect element, and in our console, let's go to our console and say $0.get attribute. And what attribute are we looking for? The source attribute. Sorry, the value attribute. Okay, it says Angular. Now, $0 is nothing but this input text box. So when we again say $0.value, it is going to say Angular. Now check this out. Let me change it to Jotmon, and in our console, let me say $0.get attribute value. Whoa, what is that? So if you observe here, we are not messing with the source attribute, sorry, the value attribute. We are working on the property of the tag. So when I say $0.value, it says Jotmon, but when I get the attribute, it says Angular. So here, what I mean to say is that we are working with the source property and not the attribute. The attribute is a one-time initialization, but whenever we bind this property, it is the source property. So the property is going to change, but not the attribute. And in most of the cases, like the source tag, we have a 1:1 mapping between the attribute and the properties. But anyway, in data binding, we always deal with properties. So that's pretty much it for this video about data binding. Hope you guys understood the difference between attributes and properties and how we are binding it to the property and not the attribute. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.